What a great description. It's almost like I wrote it. Fantastic.
Do you have slides you need?
I'm gonna pull up. Could you pull up GitHub?
Yeah.
Search KardiaIO.
Yeah.
Hey everybody. I'll get into this while Jared helps me out there. So what I came to talk about is a project I started in 2014 called Kardia. Has anybody ever heard of Kardia? Okay, if you did, it's almost definitely the other Kardia. So, basically, Kardia was an attempt to bring your heart online, or perhaps give the internet a heart, some clever way of saying it. But essentially, it was a biometric API platform, or Kardia is a biometric API platform that streams ECG data into a cloud and then renders back a clinical diagnosis. And I can do this very quickly within about 80 milliseconds. And the notion here is like pretty straightforward. Like the heart is this very central aspect of emotion. Not only does your how you perceive the world and your emotional response affect your heart rate, but vice versa. So your physiologic reality in your body can actually feed back in your heart. So it's both reactive and predictive of your emotional state. And perhaps the most, is that it? No, this is close. So what I wanted to share is kind of the diagram. Oh, that's the iOS app. Not that cool. Okay. So this is a depiction of the platform, but the notion was it actually started out as a medical device. So it started out as a clinical grade device, and I thought, well, that's kind of cool, but it's also kind of boring because there's a lot of medical devices, and I'm also really sick of building them. And at the time I started the project, I was hanging out with a lot of hackers, and I was like, wouldn't it be cool if we could just take these systems, take this intelligence and embed it all over the place, right? So if you could imagine video games, right? The application I think about the most is I was building like a hackable hardware component here. So this 2-lead ECG. Does anybody know what an ECG is? Baseline, right? Electrocardiogram. So when you see like the waves bouncing around, that's an ECG. You can take it with multiple different sensors. The simplest one is 2 leads. So Kardia had a hackable platform that you could potentially like break apart. Hackable meaning you could disassemble it and then embed it in your own system. And I envision this, for example, being in like an Xbox controller, right? So you would take the hackable hardware, put it in a game platform, get the ECG data off, and then use the Kardia API to get a diagnosis back, right? So it provide a rendering, essentially, of the emotional state, in addition to all the like clinically relevant things they can get from heart rate, back to the developer, and then let them do whatever they would want to do with it. And what's fun about that is it's a very general, interesting way to use the technology. What's hard about it is finding a very specific application to get started with. So that's actually one of the things I wanted to ask the group here, is everybody here is kind of like thinking around this space. So imagine if you could give me an ECG, and then I could give you back a clinical diagnosis. So there's different, as the previous talk highlighted, there's about 26 different orthogonal data streams that you can get from cardiac data, right? So some of them that are interesting are, obviously heart rate, but also circulating catecholamine, which is like, gives you an indication of like stress levels and that type of thing. So that was basically it. The question was to the group, like, how could you imagine utilizing this? Like, because I would like to actually build it for a particular application. But yeah, so.
All right. Thank you, Ryan. Come find Ryan if you want to talk that idea. Does anybody want to ask? We'll have one question, and then we'll just have him around for schmoozing after the last talk. Anybody have a question for Ryan?
All the way in the back.
Yeah, what hardware do I have to be wearing in order to get these signals?
Yeah, so I built the platform. Back then, it was the first prototype was an Arduino-based platform on Red Bear Labs, if anybody's familiar with Red Bear. And going forward, there's another hardware platform called Mbient, M-B-I-E-N-T. So if you want the hackable version, you have to use something that has like a supported SDK and that type of thing. But really any high quality ECG signal would work. So as long as it's sampled by above like 240 hertz, it should be diagnosable essentially.
Sweet. Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah.